there is a moment that reveals exactly how much power another person has over you. Someone accuses you of something you know is not true. They question your character. They misunderstand your intentions. They look at you and say, "You're selfish, you're arrogant, you think you're better than everyone else." And before you even realize what you're doing, you start explaining. You explain what happened. You explain what you meant. You remind them of everything you've done for them. You pull out old messages, old conversations, old evidence. You build a case for your own innocence. And you think you're protecting yourself. But ask yourself something uncomfortable. Why did they get to decide that you needed to prove yourself in the first place? The moment someone can question your character and immediately make you feel that you must defend it, they have discovered something about you. They have discovered where your emotional control is located. And that is far more important than whether their accusation was true. Because the most dangerous form of control does not always look like domination. Sometimes it looks like a question. Sometimes it looks like criticism. Sometimes it sounds like, "Why are you acting like that?" And sometimes it is nothing more than a few words designed to make you desperate to be understood. Most people don't realize how quickly they surrender control in these moments. Someone says, "You're being selfish." And you immediately answer, "I'm not selfish. I was there for you last week. I helped you yesterday. I sacrificed this for you. I did that for you." Look carefully at what just happened. They made the accusation. You accepted the accusation as something that required a response. They became the one asking the questions, and you became the one trying to prove your worth. Without realizing it, you entered a courtroom, and you accepted the role of defendant. This is where the psychology becomes interesting. Because sometimes the person accusing you isn't actually interested in the truth. They may simply be watching what happens when your identity is challenged. They push, you react. They push harder, you explain more, and eventually they discover exactly which buttons they need to press to make you anxious, defensive, angry, or desperate. Once someone learns that, they don't need to control your actions directly. They only need to control your emotional state. And when they control your emotional state, your behavior becomes much easier to influence. This is why the strongest response is not always the smartest argument. Sometimes it is a pause. Imagine someone looks at you and says, "You're being incredibly selfish right now." The old version of you would immediately begin building a defense. "No, I'm not. I did this for you. You're forgetting what happened yesterday. I was there when you needed me." But imagine doing something completely different. You look at them, you stay calm, and you say nothing. 1 second passes, then another, and another. The silence creates something most people are uncomfortable with: space. They expected resistance. They expected an argument. They expected you to start proving yourself. Instead, they are left alone with their own accusation. And suddenly, something strange can happen. They begin explaining themselves. "I didn't mean you're always selfish. I just mean right now. Why are you looking at me like that?" Notice the reversal. They started by judging you. Now they're explaining their judgment, and you didn't have to fight them to change the dynamic. But understand this clearly. Silence is not automatically power. A frightened person can be silent. A powerless person can be silent. Someone who has nothing to say can be silent. That is not what we're talking about. Real silence comes from certainty. You are not silent because you're afraid to respond. You are silent because you are deciding whether the conversation deserves your response. That distinction changes everything, because now you're no longer reacting to every emotional trigger someone throws at you. You're evaluating. Is this criticism useful? Is this accusation important? Does this person actually want to understand me? Or are they simply trying to make me react? And if the answer is the last one, why would you reward the behavior with your emotional energy? But silence is not always the answer. Sometimes you need to speak, and when you do, speaking does not mean surrendering control. If someone says, "You're obsessed with money, you're greedy," most people immediately defend themselves. "No, I'm not. I just want to provide for my family." Now you're arguing inside their frame. You're trying to prove that their label is wrong. But imagine responding differently. "You caught me. I swim through a vault of gold every Tuesday. Terrible for my back." Delivered calmly, the accusation loses its power. You didn't panic. You didn't become offended. You didn't spend 5 minutes proving that you're a good person. You simply refused to treat their provocation as a threat. That is a different kind of confidence, not arrogance, not aggression, not pretending that criticism doesn't matter. It is the ability to hear something uncomfortable without immediately allowing it to control your behavior. And this is where most people fail. They think emotional strength means having the perfect response. It doesn't. Real emotional strength means you don't desperately need a response at all. You can admit when you're wrong. You can acknowledge a mistake. You can correct an important misunderstanding. You can explain yourself when an explanation genuinely matters. But there is a difference between explaining something because you choose to and explaining something because you have been psychologically cornered into it. Someone says, "Why are you always late?" You don't need a 5-minute speech. "I was late." That's it. If there is a legitimate reason that needs to be explained, explain it, but don't confuse accountability with self-defense. You can take responsibility for an action without putting your entire character on trial. And if someone says, "You're being ridiculous," you don't have to immediately prove that you're reasonable. You can simply ask, "What makes you see it that way?" Now the direction of the conversation changes. You're not desperately proving yourself. You're asking them to explain their judgment. And that is the deeper lesson. You don't have to accept every role someone assigns you. If they make themselves the judge, you don't automatically have to become the defendant. If they make an accusation, you don't automatically owe them a defense. If they misunderstand you, you don't automatically have to correct them. And if they dislike you, you don't automatically have to change yourself. Because eventually, you have to learn something that is extremely uncomfortable for people who depend on validation. You can survive being misunderstood. You can let someone think you're wrong. You can let someone disagree with you. You can let someone walk away without having the final word. You can allow someone to have an opinion about you that you know is inaccurate. And nothing inside you has to collapse. For the next 7 days, try something simple. Stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. When you make a mistake, say, "I made a mistake." When you're late, say, "I was late." When someone misunderstands something insignificant, pause before correcting them. Ask yourself, does this actually matter? Because there is a difference between protecting something important and protecting your image. One protects your values, the other slowly destroys your confidence. The more you practice this, the more uncomfortable it may become at first, because you'll begin to notice something you probably didn't want to see. Sometimes you weren't defending yourself because you were actually under attack. You were defending yourself because you couldn't tolerate the possibility that someone might think badly of you. That is the real addiction, not being right, being understood, not protecting your character, protecting your image. And once you see that, you can begin breaking it. You stop asking, how do I make them understand me? And you start asking, does this person even deserve an explanation? That question changes the entire dynamic, because now you are choosing where your energy goes. You are choosing who gets access to your emotions. You are choosing which criticism deserves reflection and which criticism deserves nothing more than silence. Machiavelli understood that perception influences power, but there is a deeper perception that matters even more: your perception of yourself. If you know who you are, someone else's accusation doesn't automatically redefine you. If you know what you stand for, someone's disapproval doesn't immediately make you question your values. If you know when you're wrong, you don't need to pretend you're perfect. And if you know when you're right, you don't need everyone else to agree. That is when you become difficult to manipulate. Not because nobody can criticize you, they still can. Not because nobody can misunderstand you, they still will. Not because nobody can judge you, they absolutely can. They simply lose the ability to control you by making you feel that you have to prove yourself. And that is the real power of non-defense. It is not silence because you are powerless. It is silence because you know your power does not depend on their approval. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need everyone to understand your intentions. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. And you certainly don't need to defend your existence every time someone questions it. The moment you stop asking for permission to be who you are, something changes. You become slower to react, harder to provoke, harder to shame, harder to manipulate. You stop reacting. You start observing. You stop explaining. You start deciding. And eventually, you realize something that changes the way you move through every difficult conversation. Your greatest power was never in having the perfect defense. It was in realizing that you didn't always need one, because the person who controls their own emotional state is far harder to control. And when other people can no longer control your emotions simply by questioning you, they lose one of the easiest ways they ever had to control you.